Welcome back to the Joe Walsh Show. Coming up this half hour, the Democrats thought they were just making noise about abolishing ICE. It doesn't look like that's the case. Then the pathetic personal attacks were just making noise about abolishing ICE. It doesn't look like that's the case. Then the pathetic personal attacks against Judge Brett Kavanaugh, they're already out of hand. And finally, these NFL multimillionaires who take a knee, a sports analyst today gave them the hard truth. But we start with immigration, and we start with some hope that my former colleagues in the House, the Republicans, are finally beginning to get wise and smart and assertive and call the Democrats out on this issue of people entering this country illegally. To talk about these issues, I am really pleased to be joined by Michael Cutler, a former INS special agent. He's got 30-plus years in immigration enforcement. Michael, welcome. Man, do I want to pick your brain. So
okay, thanks
let's
for
start
having me, Joe.
with, you got it, my friend. Let's start with this issue of ICE. For the past month and a half, you've had Democrat after Democrat running around the country saying, we got to abolish ICE, we got to get rid of our immigration cops. And then I read today that the Republicans may actually introduce a bill to do just that. Obvious question, why would the Republicans introduce this bill?
Can I coin an expression? Perhaps they're trying to pin the tail on the Democratic donkey. How does that work for you, Joe?
Yes.
Look, I want to read something real quickly. You know, I provided testimony to the 9/11 Commission. What most people don't know is the second largest contingent of law enforcement officers assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force are immigration agents. I've arrested terrorists in my career. My first case led me to uncover a terror plot in Israel. We prevented the bombing of an oil refinery. So let me just read this. This is from the 9/11 Commission staff report on terrorist travel. These were the agents and attorneys that worked with the commission. Although there is evidence that some land and sea border entries of terrorists without inspection occurred, these conspirators mainly subverted the legal entry system by entering at airports, and in so doing, they relied on a wide variety of fraudulent documents, on aliases, on government corruption. Because terrorist operations were not suicide missions in the early to mid-1990s, once in the United States, terrorists and their supporters tried to get legal immigration status that would permit them to remain here primarily by committing serial or repeated immigration fraud, by claiming political asylum, and by marrying Americans. Many of these tactics would remain largely unchanged and undetected until the attack of 9/11. Thus, abuse of the immigration system and a lack of interior immigration enforcement were unwittingly working together to support terrorist activity. What more do I need to say, Joe? You know, one of the key
Michael,
things that we did is
that's
arrest
spot on. Go ahead.
Investigate fraud. I'm sorry.
No, continue. Michael, continue that thought.
All right. So one of the things we did, and the way that I uncovered the terror plot in Israel, we had a young man from Israel with an altered visa. People lie on their applications for benefits. I've testified before. I think we're up to 17 hearings in the House and Senate. My first hearing was back in 97, 4.5 years before 9/11, because of two deadly attacks in 93 in the United States. And the hearing before the Immigration Subcommittee focused on immigration fraud and visa fraud. Who has the responsibility? ICE agents. Why in the world, at a time like this, when we see terror attacks, when we see huge numbers of gang members entering the United States, and who are they primarily injuring and killing and targeting? Members of the ethnic immigrant communities, and not just from Latin America. As an agent, I didn't just arrest people who were Latino. That notion is insane. I've arrested people from all over the world, of every race, every religion, every ethnicity. Our immigration laws are completely blind about race, religion, or ethnicity. If they weren't, Joe, I couldn't have enforced those laws for 30 minutes, let alone 30 years. It's about keeping out criminals and terrorists and fugitives. Why would anybody with a rational brain want to leave America vulnerable that way?
Michael, it makes absolutely no sense. But let me throw that question right back at you. Look, I really appreciate the fact that President Trump is cracking down on this issue. But with your experience, Michael, why as a country have we gotten so lax over the years when it comes to people entering this country illegally?
All right, well, so let me throw it back to you, okay? And I know you're a member of Congress, and I'm not being partisan.
Yeah.
Do you think the immigration system is broken?
Yes.
No. You see, if you look at the immigration system for what it has become, it's wildly successful. It is the most successful and efficient delivery system this side of FedEx and UPS. It delivers an unlimited supply of cheap, exploitable labor, an unlimited supply of foreign students, an unlimited supply of foreign tourists, and an unlimited supply of clientele for immigration lawyers. Now, when you look at it from that angle, is immigration broken or successful?
No, Michael, fair point, touche. When you look at it from that angle, you're exactly right.
So this is a failure by design.
Yeah.
There's no other conclusion I can come to. We can fix it with interior enforcement, and yet we have almost nobody doing interior enforcement. And now the Democrats say, let's do away with it altogether. This would be an act of national suicide. We should have what President Trump wants, and that's at least another 10,000 ICE agents. You've got 6,000 ICE agents. Half of them aren't even doing immigration work. The C in ICE is customs. John Hostetler, I don't know if you know John, but he chaired the House Immigration Subcommittee. I testified for him a bunch of times. He talked about how this agency created by Bush, both sides of the aisle bear responsibility, after 9/11 created dysfunction and enforcement incoherence because we have too many globalists from both parties who are in Congress right now, and they're doing precisely what the globalists want, but not what the American people want. And look at the hell of a price we're paying. And by the way, how many Americans lose their jobs when ICE agents don't raid the factories, punish the employers, and deport aliens who have no right to work in the United States?
Right. And then, Michael, you've got this whole crazy issue of sanctuary cities that just drive the American people bonkers. And Trump's trying to crack down on them as well.
Well, he is. And Jeff Sessions is one of my heroes. You know, Jeff quoted me from the floor of the Senate 10 years ago when I wrote an article for the Washington Times. I gave comprehensive immigration reform a new title. I came to call it the Terrorist Assistance and Facilitation Act. And so sanctuary cities harbor, shield, encourage, and induce aliens to enter illegally and remain here thereafter in violation of law. If you or I did that as civilians, we'd be arrested and prosecuted, and rightfully so. Those are felonies. What the sanctuary cities do is to undermine national security, public safety, violate the findings and recommendations of the 9/11 Commission. We see these 90-year-old women being strip searched, trying to get on their last flight to visit with some grandchildren. And meanwhile, we have millions of people wandering around the country. And put that in perspective, 19 terrorists on 9/11, barely out of their teens, created more casualties in America on the mainland than the entire Japanese fleet at Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. And we've seen other attacks. The Tsarnaev brothers, Faisal Shahzad, the Times Square bomber, San Bernardino. These were all individuals who exploited vulnerabilities in immigration law enforcement. And you have members of Congress that want to end immigration law enforcement? Really?
Just great. Michael, just absolutely crazy. Hey, I wanted to get your thoughts on this other issue. The Republicans have introduced a bill to make illegal border crossing a felony. What are your thoughts on that?
Call it the Schumer bill and you've got a winner, and I'll tell you why. Chuck Schumer,
explain that to me.
Yeah, you're going to like this. I think your audience will. Chuck Schumer, just a couple of years ago, it's on his website, said that he wanted to make trespassing on critical infrastructure or landmarks a federal felony with a 5-year penalty. He said, you know, if you don't put people in jail for trespassing, they get a trespass, and that's dangerous. Well, I agree, but Chuck Schumer thinks when you trespass on America, you're entitled to citizenship, the highest honor we can bestow, and literally the keys to the American kingdom. So why not pass that bill? And I would honor Schumer and make it a 5-year felony and call it the Schumer law. What do you think of that?
Oh my gosh, Michael, you have got to present that to somebody in Congress. I love that. Call it the Schumer bill. We got to get that out there. That's a great idea.
Am I bad or am I bad?
Hey, Michael, I just want to tell you something, man. I could pick your brain all night. We're going to get you on again. I so appreciate your time. Michael Cutler, thank you, my friend.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for covering the topic and telling the truth.
You got it. Hey, the left has nothing against Brett Kavanaugh. I'll have that for you.